business is developing. It's in motion, always. That's been true since the first days of modern management theory. But when a bolt out of the blue hits us with a shattering event, like a paralyzing hurricane, a catastrophic earthquake, 9/11, or this worldwide mystery virus, we're reminded of our challenge in business, dealing with uncertainty. I mean, what's next? I can't see for sure. Do we hunker down? Do we turn off the lights? How do we survive? I'm so anxious. It's all natural. Uncertainty is just a part of leading. Now, that uncertainty has just been turned up to 11. One of the true wise souls ever to advise leaders said, leading business is not about working harder. It's about anticipating further. And the two steps that guarantee that you'll be able to anticipate further are stay widely informed. That's number one. Stay widely informed. And number two, keep thinking straight. So today, I asked 4 colleagues to help us by sharing what they see on the horizon. First, we have with us Charlie Malouf. Now, when Jason and I were learning the first fundamentals of business, we learned the first fundamentals of business from some of the great furniture retailers in the United States. They see it all, and when I had the opportunity to talk with Charlie, I said, this is someone that you should all have a chance to listen to. He's running Ashley Home Stores in the Carolinas and Georgia. Paul Jensen has joined us as well. Paul is a global executive in the technical manufacturing businesses and has been for many years. But when I had my one-on-one with Paul, he told me a couple of stories, and as I listened to the stories, I realized that I was talking to somebody very special, because not only does he have the broad range of experience in manufacturing, but Paul has insight. So I invited him to join us here today. David Sermersheim, you saw his introduction, so you said, well, this is one easy guy to listen to. He's a manager in HDPE fusion experts. Now, it's piping, it's technical, it's also sales, and there's 2 things about a person that has a foot in each area, the technical engineering area and in the sales area. Either it's going to be the most tedious conversation you ever have when you talk to them, or it's going to be the most fascinating. And I think you know where I'm headed with this, because David and I have talked ourselves, and I've said, this guy is really interesting. And the 4th person joining us is Frédéric Guitton. Frédéric is the chief strategist at Red Team Software. Red Team Software provides back office and assisting software to one of the more complicated businesses in the world, which is the construction business. Lots of moving parts, lots of things to be adjusted. But more than that, in my conversations with Frédéric, I realized that not only did he have that practical knowledge that you have to have if you're providing those kinds of services, but he also was able to take the view from 30,000 feet. And those 2 things together make somebody really valuable to listen to. So the 4 of them are here with us today. Here we are on gallery view, and we will go back to speaker view as they talk. But thank you all for joining us, and thank you for the contribution that you're about to make to our ability to be widely informed. Frédéric, we'll start with you.
All right.
What I'd like to find out is, in looking out at the horizon, what do you see?
It may sound a little cliche, but for me, the way I look at it, it's kind of the same before that it was before COVID for us. It means it's going to be something different that we don't quite know exactly what it is yet. So for us as a business, we have to remain very nimble no matter what. The way the construction industry, which is the industry we serve, works is not going to change in terms of how a project is built. There are changes relative to how companies want to run, but those were changes that were already in the process of happening, meaning more flexibility for the employees to be able to work remotely if they need to. Those are not new trends, they're just accelerated, is what we're seeing. Obviously, the construction industry is a very diversified industry. People think about construction as one industry, but we think about it as, about 100 industries. Construction touches, industrial, or it could be highly technical construction, such as, plants for, chemical products and things like that. But then you've got hotels, retail, and so it touches all different facets of industry. So it's always interesting because the industry is able to somehow shift, right, as we go into more uncertain times to where the work is. So right now we're definitely seeing the trend changes. I mean, the odds of building a bunch of new hotels right now is not super high. But then renovating hotels might actually be a perfect timing because they have high vacancy rate, so they don't have a real loss of occupancy. So they may accelerate renovations that they were going to do in 2 years and do it now because there's a window of opportunity that there is less loss of doing that work. So it's really interesting for us to observe all of that. But in summary, I would say it's kind of more of the same. It's just, remaining as an organization adaptable. Now, other businesses are deeply impacted by what's going on. And certain segments of construction are deeply impacted. That being said, globally, it's a fairly good industry to be in the current environment. Not to mention for us, providing remote work capabilities for construction organization is important. Connecting the accounting team, like we've had clients where they did not want their project managers who go in the field, so interact with more people naturally just by the nature of their work. They did not want the PMs to go back in the office at all. They said, my office team, meaning accounting and so forth, they come in the office, my PMs have to stay out of the office. Having a product like ours was perfect because, hey, you have a laptop, you can do all your work because everything lives in the cloud for them. So those are transitions we're seeing.
Well, now, listen, as you're listening to him, I hope you're unpacking all the different areas. You see what I was talking about on the view from the practical level and 30,000 feet. You said something early on, and it struck me. I ask you this. A lot of the same trends, you said, but accelerating. And that creates another stress because moving faster, right, is harder than moving at a slow pace. So your clients then are looking for what from you as things are accelerating, do you think, as the strategist and marketing officer?
Yeah, so first, I don't call it stress, I call it opportunity. What I love when there is change like this and there is like friction that occurs is, you just have to be the strongest on the field. It's a plain and simple thing. And again, it's acceleration. The competition is going to separate itself a lot faster in this environment than any other environment. So I think that's a pretty straightforward reality of what we're seeing. But what we're seeing, in terms of the acceleration, it's a mental mind shift that's occurring inside companies. Even business owners that were completely closed-minded to the idea of an employee could be productive working from home. Now it's not like they got a voice anymore about this. It's, listen, they have to work from home. There's not a choice. They're not allowed to come into the office. So you're gonna find out. And so now your opinion becomes irrelevant. And I love that. I think opinions is one of the single largest business liability out there. And so it's forcing company to explore new ways to run their business that they never considered. And I think we're all finding efficiencies, I think, that are going to transform our business going forward. But again, to me, just fall into that theme of acceleration, transformation, but nothing that was not going to occur. It might have taken 20 years, and we may have to do it in 2 months. It's just kind of the reality.
Yes, that's terrific. And again, packed with various things that you should be paying attention to. Luckily, this is recorded so that you can back it up and hear a little bit about the things that he said about acceleration, about strength. You've got to go in as the strongest. These are all terrific insights for this current period that we're coming into. Charlie, from your view, what do you see?
Yeah, so I'm in retail and I'm in the home furnishing space. And so where is everyone spending a lot more time these days? In their homes. So we've been the benefactor of increased demand in our sector. And it has put an enormous strain on the supply chain. And that would have happened probably without the stimulus. The stimulus just amplified the stress in two ways. It amplified the demand, and it also, I think, kept some people out of the workforce, that or the coronavirus itself. And so the supply chain domestically and internationally has been as constrained as it's ever been. And so it's created a lot of really strange anomalies. For instance, our cash position has never been higher. Our open orders have never been higher. Our cancellations have never been higher. Our speed to customer has never been slower. And so it's just these really, it's like, okay, we've got a lot of cash, that's great, but we also have a lot of pissed off customers. That's not great, who are waiting extraordinarily now. And so we're having to do things to, we have a huge commissioned sales force who gets paid off of delivered sales. And when there's a whole long lag, we have to do unnatural things to supplement their pay, to top them off, to give them pay that can be greater than or equal to what they could get by sitting at home and collecting the stimulus, to put themselves in harm's way, if you will. So so that's what we're seeing from like the customer demand. We're in the Carolinas and Georgia. We're still getting the same amount, if not more, traffic. Now, we're not getting like grocery store traffic increases. We still have tremendous, we have caps on the number of customers who can come in our stores. Everyone has to wear a mask, that sort of thing. But we have spacious stores where we're never going to get to even 50% capacity or anything close to it. And so, but we're still getting, initially it was a surge in online sales, but a lot of that was because governments mandated store closures. Now stores are open and people were wearing masks, and we're getting as much, if not more, traffic as we had before the pandemic. And so that's what we're seeing from that level. I will tell you on the delivery, that is completely constrained in terms of huge demand. Imagine like just how many Amazon trucks have you seen in your driveway today or your neighborhood? And so our delivery drivers have so many options to service folks who want stuff delivered to them. And so it's really constricted the supply, and it's driven the costs up at least 20% overnight for our cost on labor on home delivery. And that may not even be enough to compete. So huge inflation on delivery overnight from this to try to keep up with demand, because everyone's trying to keep up with it at the same time. And then supply chain is just dragging on any kind of like big bulky goods, especially that of which has either a domestic manufacturing component or even an import component, is a big drag and a big delay. But in terms of like, we're still willing to invest in stores. We don't think stores are going to go away. We are bullish on, we believe that there will be a vaccine of some sort, and that this won't be like, you started off by asking us about REI. We don't believe that that the world's going to go completely e-commerce and that retail will be dead forever. Of course, we have a bias on that, but it's also from what we see. And so we think that there's a window of opportunity to strike some really good long-term deals with landlords who are looking to what they have to do. And so you can get deals that are very aggressive or less than the replacement cost. And if you can be opportunistic and can stomach a little bit of a downturn. So we're being cautiously optimistic and responsible, but also trying to be opportunistic where we have opportunities to upgrade our position and it requires construction. We have several construction projects going on with new stores or store renovations. I think you talked about the hotel industry, Frédéric, and that's a great example. While things are slow, you could renovate or remodel those stores or bring those forward. And then the last comment I guess I would say is a lot of the innovations in our industry, a lot of what people are saying, everyone's using the phrase "never waste a crisis," and it's pulled the industry 10 years forward. And so a lot of like we've created an e-team, and so speaking to customers, scheduling appointments, chatting with customers online in real time. All these type of things are things that we were not doing pre-pandemic, that it's accelerated to try to not have a single-threaded approach to the customer and have a multi-threaded approach to servicing the customer. So we're trying to be a lot more opportunistic in terms of how we meet the customer where they want to be met and service them how they want to be serviced, whether it's in-home delivery with PPE gear, PPE gear safely in the home with masks and gloves, or contactless delivery where you drop it off and then they bring it in and they assemble it themselves. So offering multiple options like that, and then trying to find multiple ways to service the guests who are shopping, whether it's online through appointments or just the traditional way. So, but our demand is up. We just can't get enough product. I think you're still on mute, Lawrence.
Sorry, I'm still on mute. Now I'm off. So many things to unpack. Again, listen carefully, go through it, think about it. But one common word just came up, acceleration. Another common thing that just came up is talking about what really is the value of anticipation. Because the value of anticipation is you can accelerate without saying, I don't know which way to go. And so seeing the pattern of what's already existed, taking it to what's happened right now, and then saying, where is that likely to be in a few short days, weeks, or months? What's that mean? And then as we're developing these skills, how does it pay off? All part of the discipline of anticipation. So listen again carefully. There was a lot to hear in what he had to say. Thank you, Charlie. And David, what do you see?
We have seen a lot in the last number of months, Lawrence. I think that the two things that stand out most of all, we were faced with an immediate impact on how the company continues to touch our customers. So we get to a point where our company, our salespeople have a face-to-face relationship, and they built these relationships over a long period of time, and we're suddenly faced with the inability to go face-to-face with these customers to continue to support those relationships and build new relationships. So what we've seen is a complete redo of how we touch the customer. So where it may have been face-to-face and then electronic via phone, email, some Zoom, that's kind of shifted to where now we're doing hour-long learning sessions. We're doing more Zoom. While I manage more of the operations side where our people are out there with the customer, what I'm looking at now, suddenly my people end up being, or my team, we end up being the face of our company now, because in many instances, the salespeople can't be in front of the customer. So now the only people that our customers ultimately see face to face are our guys. We can't fuse pipe virtually. We have to be there. So our guys are the ones that are on that front line. So what can we do to better reflect and be the face of our company? So that's one of the things that the company began to, I'm going to say, wrestle with and innovate immediately once this pandemic hit. So how do we touch the customers, and how do we continue that process to continue to build those positive relationships even under the new circumstances we're under?
And where do you think that skill takes you next? Because you're taking pipe fusing and a technical area, an area by what you'd have to call a work person who's not necessarily used to being responsible for being the face of the company, and you're giving them the skills to do that. They're going to do it. Obviously, they're going to succeed because those people just they've got so much integrity in the way that they talk. Anybody who's serious sits and listens to them and really appreciates what they're doing. Where do you think that takes you from here then, as you develop those skills? What might that mean in 6 months or a year?
I think what it's caused us to do, looking forward, we have to get better. The team has to get better on a multiple number of fronts. We have to be better at communicating with the customer. We have to be better at technology. You know, we're moving from the point where we would close out an order with the customer's signature. Well, we're not doing that touch anymore, if you will. So now each of these individuals, to close this out, still has to end up getting that sign off. So they now need to know their programs better. They now need to better understand technology. We were in a situation with training, and early in the process, our technicians not only fuse, but they go out and they train customers that need to be certified to do the same. Well, we couldn't put them in harm's way in groups of people. So they then had to learn technology. They then had to learn to be able to go on to Zoom courses, if you will. So we had to embrace technology and completely change the way that we delivered part of what we do so that we could continue to provide those services to the customer. So it's that. Now, if we were in a situation where it was not smooth and clean beforehand, this would have been very difficult. But all we really did in a process that should have taken 2 to 3 months, within literally a week, we turned half of our training into an electronic delivery. And we've tweaked and we've changed, but it's not a forklift. It's just building on that foundation that we already had in place.
Benefit, Paul. Best for last?
I don't know about that.
Well, what do you see?
Well, you know, one thing we've gotten used to over the last decade or so, or maybe even been introduced to in a big way, is disruption. And what I see, I see some major disruption that's occurring right now, and we're watching it live. And there's this, for example, there's going to be a huge disruption around, and disruption occurs when you go back and you say, I can't believe we used to do it that way. So you look at Uber and you go, I can't believe I used to get in a dingy, shitty old cab with a driver that couldn't speak English, and I had to find my cash or credit cards, and Uber's so much easier. I can't even believe we used to do it that way. And Airbnb and all these things with, you know, hotels that don't have hotel space. And I think the first disruption we're going to see is quality of life. So people are working at home. They've been doing it for 5 months now, maybe 6 months. And they're saying, you know what? I can have breakfast with my family. I can see them off to school and still be on my computer at 8 o'clock. At the end of the day, I sign off at 6, and I don't have an hour and a half commute home. At 6:01, I'm having dinner with my family. I'm putting the kids to bed. I have a little bit of time to relax and watch some TV, maybe catch one a little work, and they're getting used to that, and they like it. They say, I can't believe I used to do it the old way where I commuted. I got up at 6 in the morning. I didn't get to the office till 8. I wasn't even productive till 8, and I've been going since 6. At the end of the day, I'm shutting down at 6, and I'm not even getting home till 7:30 because of my commute. And I think of all the opportunities that's going to occur because of that major disruption in terms of level loading, transportation, trains, buses, subways, congestion on your highways. We talked about flex time as a way to manage that, but now imagine where if you really managed it correctly and people did a couple of days in the office and you've rotated that around, the impacts it would have on transportation, on gasoline consumption, on pollution, on waiting and queues and all of that. Now, the flip side of that, the other disruption is, well, if people are working at home, they're goofing off. Nobody's productive when they're home. They got all kinds of demands. Wifey's asked me to go out and get some milk. I'm on the golf course. They're screwing off. So what you're going to see is an enormous innovation in technology to manage the remote workforce. So yeah, I like being home. I like all the benefits of that. I'm going to have to give up something a little bit. And what I would have to give up is a little bit of privacy. But when I'm in the office, I don't have it anyway. My boss can pop in my office anytime he wants. He can watch what I'm doing. The IT guys monitor my computer anyway. He knows all the sites I'm on every single day. So you really never had it in the office anyway. But I can envision where there's going to be an enormous innovation. I see it with a company. There's a company called Transparent Business, which is creating software to manage remote workers, because that's here to stay. Because what I said in disruption number 1 about quality of life, and I like my new life. I like all the things that it's done for me. So this flip side of that is, how do you manage that effectively and have the tools? I can envision a box on everybody's desk at home, their home desk. Like I have an Echo Show, and it's an Amazon box, and it has a screen on it, and I say, drop in Kristen, and it drops into my daughter's house, and I say hi to the kids, and we communicate, and we talk, and then we get off, and I can do it anytime I want. I can imagine a box on everybody's home desk where, if a conversation comes up, and you say, what does Larry think about that? Boom, pops up. Your boss would like to talk to you. Accept it. Give me 10 minutes. I'm in a meeting for an hour, whatever. Or, hey, Lawrence, we were just talking about this. We're in my office. What do you think about that? In some ways, that's even better than having to go in their office and knocking on their door and trying to get 3 people together in the conference room. So there's enormous opportunity there. And so that's going to be a major disruption, though, because the old farts like me, the old people, the old school people, again, go back to people at home. When they're working at home, when they're out of sight, they're goofing off. I don't see them, they're goofing off. Well, that's going to change. And like I said, the third disruption I see is the whole transportation industry. I see huge opportunities around congestion, around managing traffic, around subways, buses, airplanes, all the implications of having that kind of flexibility in the workforce, where everybody is not showing up at 9 and leaving at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's gone. It's going to change, believe me. And so those are the major disruptions that I see going on. And I think they're going to have huge implications, but also amazing opportunities as we go forward.
Were you paying attention? Are you listening? Did you hear that? I wrote it down. Disruption. But then disruption, not in the way of, oh my God, my life is being ruined, but rather disruption in the opposite way. So interesting to say it that way. Can't believe I used to do it that way. That's terrific. That's just a great insight. And I appreciate that as well as the others. But I'm going to go back to our gallery view right now and just say, because I'm cognizant of the time on your part, I could listen for hours and never realize the time. But I ask you, if you have a question, if you want to make an additional comment, we'll start with Charlie. I want to give you that opportunity and obviously remind everybody, this is the beginning, not the end. There's opportunities for this. I hope you get excited about the idea of doing your conversations and finding out where people are from so that you can build these kinds of relationships where people are telling you what they see. Charlie, anything further on your point or a question or comment from something that somebody else said? The floor is yours.
Sure, thanks, Lawrence. There's so much disruption that Paul talked about, but then there's collateral damage that comes with the disruption, and we also have to anticipate that. And so not everyone can adjust. Like, there's the quality of life, it's great for some, but not for everyone. For some, they might miss the connections at the office, or there might be something lacking. And so I think, like, with social distancing, and I prefer physical distancing because I think social distancing leads to social isolation. And so I know that I've spoken to a lot of executives, and maybe I'll just speak to myself for a little bit. Like, the adjustment is so severe. There's a lot I enjoy about working at home, but I wouldn't want to do it all the time every day, because there's something that I lack. I lack on the social connection. And also, I would say there's an element of Groundhog Day that comes with it. And repeated over time, okay, yeah, I'm going to get up, I'm going to be in front of my laptop, I'm going to get up to go to the restroom and go eat, and then it's just the same room. And there's something different about looking at people on a Zoom video versus being in front of them face to face or in those meetings. And so maybe some hybrid approach would be good, where, okay, I don't have to go to the office and feel like a robot, or some of the things that like Paul was talking about, but maybe I can do a little bit of both, right? And then also I would just say, we're not the whole economy is not built off of just white collar workers. And so there's a lot of frontline workers, restaurant workers, delivery drivers, retail workers, healthcare workers, and they're not necessarily experiencing the same things that the whole work from home population is, per se. So not everyone has the same experiences at that level. But I think we have to be mindful of the collateral damage that comes with such a seismic shift of the way that we go to work.
Yeah, the idea of having the empathy, which we're going to do another session just on that, because Paul gave us all something, and it sent me to the research lab, and I pulled out and I said, oh my God, one of these people that was quoted in that article that he connected to has a brilliant lesson for all of us in the world of what empathy really means. So that will be coming up. But the idea of the collateral damage, I remember the people at IKEA that said to me, we built 8 IKEA stores in 1 year. Nobody had ever done anything like that before. And I said, well, what did you learn from it? And she said, one thing, I learned how to say I'm sorry. She said, because there was Peter paying Paul. And she said it was unavoidable. So I not only learned how to say I'm sorry, I learned how to really mean it and make sure they knew I mean it. This is the CEO of IKEA for all of North America. And I just said, what a great thing, because she took collateral damage in her head and said, well, I'm not going to do the old omelet broken eggs thing. I'm going to worry about it, and I'm going to come up with an answer. And the other word I love that Charlie just used, I hope you guys will note it, because it means a lot for all of us: hybrid. Taking the old answer and simply repackaging it. So many people are doing that right now. We could get a real leg up by saying, no, 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 no. We are going to blend, we're going to integrate, we're going to take both, and we're going to do something about it. And that, to me, is a competitive advantage. When you can talk hybrid that meets the current situation and meets the future, rather than talk, well, we had this answer in 1987, and maybe we'll just trot it out and pretend we just came up with it. No, come on. We're not, we got to do better than that. So Charlie, thank you. David, how about you?
I talked a little bit about reassessing where you are, and if you have strong fundamentals that you just need to tweak. And I think about that in what we're dealing with. One of the great comments that I heard from one of the guys, they said, based on what we're looking at, based on all the data and information, we're going to change course. But we reserve the right to reassess the situation and change course at any time. So I think the beauty is the ability to assess the situation, move forward with the plan, not stand still, move forward with the plan, but then be able to review it and pretty much daily and change course when need be.
Yeah, the idea of flexibility. And what message does that send to everybody? I'll let you answer the question because I know you're on top of it. What message does that send to everybody when you show how flexible you can be? What do they all say?
Yeah, no question. And when this did come out in the company, people looked at it and thought, okay, number one, they were excited that we were moving forward. We're not a sit back organization, and our employees, our teammates, our peers aren't either. So they were very excited to see, number one, that we were moving forward, but to understand the flexibility. Not only did it say, hey, we're going to get through this, we're not just going to charge forward blindly, but what it said is that we're going to continue to see what's going on. We're going to continue to look at this. Let us manage this. Let's all do our job. Sharpen your tools when you have the time, but we're moving forward. And I think what it also did, it helped the employees to understand, hey, the company's being flexible with what we're dealing with. We can be flexible too.
Terrific. Paul, I know you like what you just heard. What's your final comment?
Well, I love it, and I think it's all about balance. I mean, the current. I agree with Charlie and David. Charlie said that it's a collateral damage with the way we're doing it now. I agree with that 100%. David said relationships are really important in business, and so that you got to come up with a balance on this quality of life issues. But nobody really likes it 100%. Somebody may like it the way it is now, but there's still a need for relationships. We want to do that, but maybe the guy who figures this out correctly, successfully, will balance all those quality of life issues with all the need for relationships and emotional support and teams and working together. That's the great thing about business. That's what we all love about business, is meeting people. And you don't meet people looking at a computer screen. So I agree with that 100%. I think the future, the new normal, as they say, because this is a disruption. It's never going to go back to the way it was, I don't believe. It's going to be some sort of a balanced hybrid approach that combines my desire for the quality of life things that I've experienced over the last 6 months with all the relationship and management needs of the business. And a hybrid model, to me, is the way forward.
Well, that's just a fantastic summary. I know you're thinking to yourself, we can do more of this, right? Well, we can do more of it, but we can't do it right now. We need to get people the opportunity to see the other things. But I wanted you to see how much you can gather when you listen to others and look to be widely informed. And I know you're thinking to yourself, I've got questions, I've got ideas, I've got comments. Remember what Paul just said. The person that can integrate this, the person that can balance it, remember what Charlie said, the person that's flexible, that person, he alluded to, Paul did, they're going to come out of this doing really well. Let me say this to you, and I'll present the research when we get together. It's uncommon to have these qualities. And so as you build them, you are building competitive advantage because others will not. I don't believe it for a second. I've been around this. I've seen it. They will not come to this kind of flexibility, integration, and hybrid with naturally, and culture, by the way, naturally. So you've got the opportunity out of all of this for competitive advantage. Well, today we had an opportunity to talk. I want to thank Frédéric, had to bounce off, being flexible, got a call. Hey, big time customer, needs your involvement. Know you scheduled something else. How do we bounce off of that? And he made it all work. We appreciate your being here, Frédéric. Certainly Paul, certainly David and Charlie. What a fantastic opportunity we had to talk and listen and become more widely informed.